guys, I know virtual learning looks very different than in person, but we're going to try to make this work so that you are hearing from your teachers. So Miss Woods and I will both be team teaching on the videos together, and we'll be posting those each week. The first lesson we're going to go over is ratios and unit rate. Ratio is a comparison of two or more numbers when you're comparing things. Like, for example, a lot of times in the class we look at like ratios of boys to girls in the class, or you can like have a group of Skittles, and maybe you're finding the comparison of how many red Skittles versus how many green Skittles, how many yellow Skittles in the bag. So that's what a ratio is. It compares different numbers. We also talk about rate, and what rate is, it's a ratio, but it compares quantities expressed in two different units. And that, like, for example, you hear like miles in hours. So like if I'm gonna go down to Florida, I'm gonna go about 900 miles. And then you figure out how many hours it'll take you to go 900 miles. So that's what that is. Or you'll see like price per gallon, and price per gallon brings me to the next word, which is unit rate. A unit rate is a rate. It's a ratio of the two measurements, but the denominator is one. So like price per 1 gallon, miles per 1 hour. With the ratio, we can write it three different ways, and you're going to see it written three different ways, so I want you to know what those ways are. The first way you can see it is with the word to. Oh my, there we go, with the word to. So let's say that there are in the class 16 boys to 14 girls. And that's the one way you can write it, is with the word to. The other way you can write it is with a colon. And you would maybe do 16 to 14 and say it that way. And you can still say the word to, but you can write it with a colon looking at 16 to 14. And then the last way you can write it is as a fraction. And usually with the fraction, that's when we do the unit rate, like 14 miles per gallon, or if we're going 55 miles per hour. Sometimes you'll see that, and that's a fraction there. So that's the ways you can use ratios, rate, and unit rate. I'm gonna work on a couple of examples. And we'll go over those.
Hey guys, I'm Miss Woods. I'm the other 7th grade math teacher. I'm going to go over some of the ratio examples with you all. The first one is, what is the ratio of hexagons to circles? So if you look up here, they've got our shapes. If you count how many hexagons there are, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So on the top of the fraction, you'll have 6 hexagons. And then that would be your numerator. Then it asks 2 circles, so we see that we only have 1 circle right there. So we would have 6 to 1 is what the ratio would be. If you're putting it in on the computer, if you see right here, you can use the slash button to show your numerator and denominator. So for this, it would be 6 to 1 would be your answer for the question. So our second example is this one right here. It says, what is the ratio of total shapes to triangles? I want you all to go ahead and try to do this one on your own, since we've already done one example together. And once you get it finished, then we'll go over it together. So, I'll go ahead and read the question again. What is the ratio of total shapes to triangles? So on this one, we need to count how many shapes there are together. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, which will be our numerator on top. And we're comparing that to triangles, which is 1, 2. So your answer for this would be, the ratio of total shapes to triangles is 4 to 2. This is our final example for ratios. I'm going to go ahead and read it for you all, just so that you all can, in case you all can't see it as well. Clayton's Pizzeria made 94 pizzas. 57 of the pizzas had pepperoni. What is the ratio of the number of pizzas with pepperoni to the total number of pizzas? So on this one, it's a little bit different, kind of what Ms. Gross had talked about. Instead of showing it as fraction, they're using a colon. So we need to find when it's comparing the ratio of the number of pizzas with pepperoni to the total number of pizzas. So on this one, they told us that 57 pizzas had pepperoni. So we know that that will be this one right here. and comparing it to the total number of pizzas, which they told us in the beginning was 94. So 57 pepperoni pizzas to 94 total pizzas, and that would be your answer.
All right, we're gonna go over 3 unit rate examples now. Now remember, rate compares 2 different units, and a unit rate is when the denominator is 1. So you're gonna get an example where it's a rate, and we're gonna make it with a denominator of 1 as a unit rate. So let's look at our first example. Find the unit rate, 12 flowers in 3 vases. Now you see, 12 flowers, 3 vases, that's where it's a rate. We have 2 different units, flowers and vases, and we wanna figure out how many flowers per vase. So we have 12 flowers, we have 3 vases. And the best way to find your unit rate is by division. We're gonna do 12 divided by 3. How many times will 3 go into 12? And it's 4, the answer is 4. 4 flowers per vase. So for the second example, I'm gonna have you try it yourself and then we'll go over the answers. So let's look at the question together. Frank jarred 24 liters of jam after 3 days. How much jam did Frank jar if he spent 5 days making jam? Solve using unit rates. Take a second, try it out yourself, and then we'll go over the answer. Okay, so we're wanting to figure out how much jam Frank jarred if he spent 5 days. We know right now he spent 24 liters in 3 days, and we can figure out how much he did in 1 day here by using division, right? So 24 divided by 3 would give us 8. He did 8 liters per day. And this question is a little bit more challenging because the question isn't how many liters per day. The question is how much jam did he do for 5 days? So now we have to kind of scale it back up to 5 days. And so 5 days, when we do 1 to 5, we're multiplying by 5. So we're going to do the same thing here. We're going to do 8 times 5, and we're going to get 40. So he's going to get 40 liters in 5 days. If you got that answer correct, give yourself a pat on the back. If you didn't get it correct, it's okay. We're going to keep working and practicing some more so that you will get it. There's another way you can do this besides scaling up like I did. It's called cross multiplication, and I want to show you that. So we'll start with that original one of 24 liters in 3 days. And now instead of finding the unit rate first, we're going to set the denominator to 5 days instead of just 1 day. And we're going to look and see how we can do that. Now, 3 doesn't evenly go into 5. And so this is why we call it cross multiplication, or sometimes you're going to hear it cross products. What you're going to do is you're going to multiply the numerator on the first rate and the denominator on the second rate. Multiply those numbers together and then divide by 3. And we should come up with the same answer. So we're going to do 24 times 5. 5 times 4 is 20. Carry my 2. 5 times 2 is 10, plus 2 is 12, so we get 120. And we're going to divide that 120 by 3. So 120 divided by 3. 3 goes into 12 4 times, and so we should have, and then 3 goes into 0. So it should be 40 liters. And that's the same answer we got finding the unit rate, but this time we did it using cross products. So there's 2 different ways you can do it, and both ways work. All right, and let's go over the third example. And the third example has a fraction in it, so we're going to pay special attention to that fraction. The copy machine at the library made a copy of Leslie's 3-page essay in just 1/10 of a minute. So not a whole minute, just 1/10 of a minute. What is the speed of the copy machine? Simplify your answer and write it as a proper fraction, mixed number, or whole number. So we're going to figure out how many pages per minute. And I want to pause right here looking at the order here is important. We want to look at pages per minute. So pages is going to be our numerator, per is like our fraction bar, and minute's going to be our denominator. And so those are your clue words. So we're trying to figure out how many pages and how many minutes. So let's look at the pages. 3 pages. How many minutes? 1/10 of a minute. And remember, we said with unit rate, you could divide. So we're gonna take 3 and we're gonna divide it by 1/10. Now that might look a little bit confusing. And I remember in 6th grade math last year, you all divided fractions by fractions. But if you need a little bit of a review on that, that's fine. The way we divide a fraction by a fraction is take that first number, which is a whole number, and make it a fraction. 3 wholes would be 3/1. So 3/1 divided by 1/10. Now I can do 3 divided by 1, but I can't do 1 divided by 10 evenly. So I'm going to have to multiply these fractions. And if you remember how to do that, we multiply by the second fraction flipped. We call it the reciprocal. So we would do 3/1. You might have heard Mr. Penrod or Mr. Cox or whoever your math teacher say do keep, change, flip. If you remember that, so 3/1, keep the first fraction, change division to multiplication, and then flip that second fraction. We call that the reciprocal. Okay, so we're going to do that. 3 times 10 is 30. 1 times 1 is 1, so it would be 30/1 or 30. And the answer would be 30 pages per minute. And that's how you get the answer to that.